to an introduction to Cartomancy. In this introduction, we'll be covering just enough to get you started. Cartomancy was the most popular form of divination using cards during the Georgian, Victorian, and Edwardian eras. Like tarot, it originated shortly after the arrival of playing cards into Europe during the 14th century. Now, whether it's used for fortune-telling or a parlor game, or used to align esoteric and mystic principles, every practitioner has their own voice and their own approach and methodology to the art. Arcanum's House of Curiosities began with this Cartomancy deck. Today we offer readings as well as classes for each person to find their own voice in the art. This deck consists of 32 cards spanning the 4 suits: diamonds, clubs, hearts, and spades. Each suit represents a phase in a much larger cycle, from where things began or originated through a period of growth and development, coming to fruition, and then finally dying back or concluding and then renewing. The most obvious example of these 4 phases can be seen in the 4 seasons, beginning in winter when everything external is still, and then in spring everything comes alive and begins to grow, reaching its apex in summer when it comes to fruition, and then in autumn everything begins to die back and prepare for the next year. We can also see this even within a human lifespan, from infancy to childhood, to adulthood, and then old age. These 4 phases can be seen in all of our experiences, including building a house. In the first phase is the creative and planning, imagining the house and creation of the blueprints. In the next phase is the acquisition of materials and building and construction of the house, followed by the fruition, the actualization of the house, the completion of construction. And then in the last phase, all that was used to build the house but is no longer necessary for the house is removed, such as the tarps and scaffolding. Looking at these 4 phases in relation to the suits, we can see that during diamonds is that phase of imagination and planning, where one's creativity meets their intellect. Then we move on into clubs, where we have the buildup of energy and its release through action. Which brings us to hearts, where all of the planning and activity that was done is finally realized, the consequences of one's actions, for better or for worse. The cycle then concludes in spades, where consideration is given to what has occurred, as well as the preparation for the next cycle. In this chart, we can see how all of the things we just discussed relate to its corresponding suit. This should help to give you a better idea of the characteristics of each suit within the deck. Now, as we mentioned before, these 4 phases are cyclic, meaning that the conclusion of one cycle leads right into the beginning of the next. Again, taking the analogy of the seasons of the year, one season ends to only set the foundation for the next. Now, of course, life would be a lot easier if it only gave us one thing at a time to worry about. But that's not the way life works, and it throws everything out all at once. Now, each one of those things contains a cycle of its own. And even within those cycles, they have sub-cycles of their own. So consider the analogy of building a house for just a moment. We have the 4 phases that it takes to build the house: the planning, the construction, the completion, as well as the removal of anything which is not the house proper, preparing it for its next phase, which one would guess would be to live in it. That is the larger cycle of building a house, but within each phase are many cycles within itself. The planning stage for building a blueprint, for example. Even every nail, every shingle put on the roof, each one would have its own cycle. So you begin to see that every person is really all over the map. If you take out the sheet that came with the cards, you'll see 4 color-designated columns. Each one of those columns represents a suit, and within each column are the cards that are within that suit. Use this to refer to the meaning of each card. Now, the definitions that are provided are only the most generic, just enough to get you started. As you progress, rely on your own intuition and extrapolate the meanings from the cards for yourself. For this class, we'll be focusing on a simple 3-card spread, covering the past, present, and future. To begin, hand the deck of cards to the person you'll be doing a reading on. Ask them to shuffle the cards while thinking of their question. It should be something not answered with a simple yes or no and left open-ended. If they're having a hard time coming up with a question, just ask them to think of an area of their life that they'd like the reading to address, again while shuffling the cards. Also let them know that whenever the cards feel right for them, to hand them back. Once they return the deck, lay the top 3 cards face down. Set the other cards aside. Flip over the first card, Past, and look up its meaning on the sheet and consider how that card could be applied to whatever it is that they're asking in relation to their past. Then flip over the second card and do the same. Consider how that card relates to their present circumstance. And then reveal the last card, Future. So again, once you receive the cards back, lay the top 3 cards face down. And set the remaining cards aside. Flipping over the first card, Past, we see the 9 of Hearts. This could be interpreted as, in the past, things were in fruition. And of course, this is all in relation to their question. Flipping over the second card, we have the 10 of Spades. 10 of Spades is a period of time of wrapping things up and transitioning to the new cycle. In relation to its position, present, we can see that currently they're going through a transition period from the conclusion of one thing into the next. And lastly, reveal the third card, Future. For this, we have the Knave of Diamonds. Through this card, we see that coming up in the future, they're going to be very clear on the direction that they want to be headed. Practice simple 3-card readings to find your footing so that you become more comfortable with the cards and doing readings. To review, when interpreting a card, first look at the sheet. See what the definition is and consider what that really means. Then consider the card's suits. Is it a diamond, a club, a heart, or a spade? Each suit has its own characteristics and helps to define the card. Consider the kinds of situations the card might be applicable to. What experience in real life could this card sum up? Then consider the image on the card. Is there anything in the image that helps you to recall or remember its meaning? Or is there something intuitive in the image that speaks to you? Once you've familiarized yourself with the 3-card reading, let's take a look at an advice card. To begin interpreting cards as advice, pull 1 card at random times throughout the day. Look for what that card represents within your own experiences and consider how the card may be telling you something. What is it asking you to look for? What should you be aware of? What are things that you should be mindful of? This will also help you to deepen your own understanding of the cards. In this example, we have the 8 of Clubs. Interpreting this as advice, we could consider that the 8 of Clubs is going out and coordinating with others. As advice, we could think of this as the card saying, don't be afraid to ask for help or to get help from other people. Don't have to go alone. Or if for an advice card you got the 7 of Diamonds, may appear confusing, that might be interpreted as, don't be afraid of the confusion. All new things you will experience periods of time where things may not line up. You just haven't had the experience yet to be able to align your knowledge with what is new. So, it's just part of the learning process. Or let's say as an advice card, you got the Queen of Clubs. All about timing. This card represents the Queen of Clubs telling you to take an honest look at the situation and consider your timing. When is really the right time to act? Sometimes when we get very excited, we have a habit of running into things prematurely. Or if it's a task that we really don't want to do, we'll drag our feet and find reasons to hem and haw and not move forward. This card is telling us, take the action that's needed to be taken when it's the right time to do it. Don't prematurely talk yourself in or talk yourself out. Once you feel comfortable interpreting cards as advice, incorporate this into the 3-card reading. After you're done interpreting the 3 cards, have the person you're doing the reading on pull 1 card at random. This card will be the advice for the reading, or what the person should be mindful of or consider as they're moving forward. A 3-card reading with the advice card. To start off, Hand the deck to the other person to have them shuffle while thinking of their question. Once it feels right to them, they'll hand it back. Take the top 3 cards, laying them down, setting the other cards aside. Starting with the first card, passed, we have the 10 of diamonds. This card represents in the past they not only knew the direction they wanted to go in, but had a plan to move forward. For the second card, present, we have the Queen of Diamonds. Presently, they're considering all of their responsibilities, obligations, and directions they're going in. Will some need to be put aside, while others find ways to dovetail in the new direction that they're going in? And the last card, future. Here we have the 8 of spades. Now we know that spades deals with endings and conclusions, but the 8 of spades in particular is the calm before the storm. In the future, they will probably feel like things aren't moving forward or have stagnated. After you've interpreted the 3 cards, have them pick one card at random. In this case, we have the 9 of hearts. Everything coming to fruition in full bloom. Interpreted as advice, we could see this card as, keep your eye on the mountain. What is it that you really want? What is it that you're trying to make come to fruition? Focus on that and have all of your activities align with it. But first and foremost, cartomancy is an art, so don't be afraid to experiment. Try new things and find your own voice in the process. Thank you for watching our brief introduction to cartomancy. Always feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and we do offer additional classes if you'd like to learn to develop your voice further in the art. We hope to see you soon.